Hey, what's up, guys? It's Bakes here. Hopefully, I've got a good balance of my regular viewers and then hopefully a few people that have actually come across from the 22 Shots podcast to check out this video. And if you have come across from the podcast and don't know who I am, you may have heard me get referred to on the podcast a couple of times as Caleb from Australia. That's normally what they name drop me as. But thank you for joining me for today's video, which is my response to the 22 Shots of Moodz and Horror Hidden Gems Volume 2 episode challenge, or whatever you want to call it. Now, first of all, I'm going to be talking a little bit in this intro, talking about how I prepped for this year's Hidden Gems lineup of movies and comparing it to last year and predictions and everything like that. So if you don't want to stay around for what could be a fairly long-winded intro, I'll put chapters in the time bar below so you can skip over this intro and get straight to my thoughts on the movies. But yeah, like I said, this little intro, I'm just going to talk about how I prepped for this year's lineup of Hidden Gems movies compared to last year's, and so on and so on. I should also briefly explain what this is, just in case you've stumbled across this video and have no idea what the fuck I'm talking about. But the 22 Shots of Moodz and Horror podcast, great horror podcast. They're my personal favourite. I've been listening to these guys for years. They're fucking awesome. Last year, they did an episode called the Hidden Gems episode, where all three hosts of the show, Moodz, JP and Tyler, picked 5 hidden gem horror movies each, making a total of 15, shared them with the listeners, and then they gave the listeners like a month or maybe a little bit over to check out all 15 and give their feedback and make a response and whatever. So I did that last year as well, and I had a great time. It was a lot of fun, and when I heard that they were going to be doing Volume 2, I was all over it. And last year I did a response video, the same as I'm doing now, and yeah, super excited to get into Volume 2 and my thoughts on it, because again, I had such a great time. Now, I just want to quickly say, last year they were doing prizes for people that listened to the podcast and checked out most of the hidden gems and whatever. And even though I wasn't eligible, because they said no one was going to be sent anything if you were from overseas or whatever, Moodz still offered to send me something. But in the Hidden Gems Volume 2 episode, he was saying how he forgot to send me something, and I think he felt a little bit bad about it. But I just want to quickly say, you don't need to send me anything at all for last year and for this year at all. Like I said, I knew I wasn't eligible last year. I was just doing it for the fun of making a response and checking out the hidden gems. You know, I'm not in it for the prizes. I'm just in it for the sake of talking about horror movies, which we all love, and the community aspect, and participating in the challenge. So again, don't need to send me anything for last year, don't need to send me anything for this year. I can't even imagine the price for shipping something from Canada to Australia and everything. I think it's just a little bit too much, I can imagine, so yeah, don't stress about it at all. So, like I said, I participated in the Volume 1 of the Hidden Gems last year, and I had a great time. Last year, out of the 15 movies, I was able to watch 13 out of the 15, and the 2 movies that I missed out on, it wasn't from a lack of trying or running out of time. I just literally couldn't find these 2 movies. But otherwise, last year, I remember enjoying JP's picks the most out of all the movies that were thrown out. Moodz were a little bit more hit and miss with me. There was a couple that I really enjoyed of the 5 that Moodz picked, but then others, weren't quite clicking with me, which is fine. And then Tyler's picks last year pretty much just had me drained. We all know, if you're a listener of the podcast, Tyler's a little bit more pretentious, and his taste in movies isn't quite the same as mine, which is no hate there. Everyone likes what they like, and there's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, last year, his movies, oh my god, I had a little bit of PTSD going into this year, prepping for his lineup of 5 movies. But like I said, overall last year I had a great time doing the hidden gems. There was like a handful that really stood out. I think there's like 4 or 5 movies from the hidden gems last year that I've picked up since, and they're on my shelf now because they really stood out to me. Now this year, I think I already said it to JP and Tyler. I spoke to JP a little bit on a live stream that he was hosting on his YouTube channel, and then I spoke a little bit to Tyler in the comments on a video. But I was talking about how this year's lineup of 15 movies I've actually enjoyed more compared to last year's, which I can't remember what JP said, but Tyler said that he thought the lineup last year, at least for him, his picks was better. But yeah, overall, I think I enjoyed this year's lineup of hidden gems more. what do I want to touch on? I also feel like more of the hidden gems were hidden this year, as in this year I was only able to see 12 out of the 15. Um, so only one less than last year, because last year I saw 13 from 15, this year 12 from 15. But again, there was just three that I just couldn't find for the life of me, and I'm not mad at that, 12 out of 15 is still pretty good, considering, I'm also trying to post for my YouTube channel and watch stuff for content there, and then I've also got work and other personal life things going on. But the three movies that I missed out on was one of JP's picks, Born for Hell, one of Tyler's picks, The Discarnates, or Discarnate, and then one of Moodz's picks being She's Dead, which I think all the hosts predicted no one was going to be able to find She's Dead, because what did Moodz say? It was like 10 people on Letterboxd have logged that movie. I'm not even sure if there is a way of seeing it, but yeah, I just could not find those three movies anywhere. And again, like last year, these movies that I was able to watch, the 12 out of 15, all of them were first time watches. There were a few that I have heard a little bit about, not in crazy detail, or I wasn't too aware of the plots, but I heard little bits and pieces, and there was some where the titles had rung a bell and I'd seen the posters and whatever. But yeah, out of the 12 movies that I did check out, all of them were first time watches, so that was cool. My predictions going into Volume 2 was pretty much how Volume 1 played out. I predicted that I was going to have the most in common with JP and get the most enjoyment from the 5 movies that he offered. They spoke a little bit about that in the Hidden Gems Volume 2 episode of the podcast as well. They spoke about how on the Facebook page that the podcast has, most people say, oh, I enjoy Moodz's list the most, but then when they say the movies that they enjoyed, it actually lines up most with JP's. I don't know what that's about. Maybe it's just that Moodz's name is in the title of the podcast, so they just gravitate. I don't know. But I've always felt I have the most in common with JP. I think we have pretty similar taste in movies. Again, I predicted that I'd be a little bit 50-50 with Moodz. I feel like most of the time, like maybe 65-70, we have pretty similar taste, but there's a few wild ones that he throws in there that, don't quite click with me. And then, like I said, Tyler's, genuinely, I was having a little bit of PTSD. Like, I was just looking at the posters on Letterboxd and reading some synopses and what he had to say about them, and I was, getting butterflies. But like I said, I was still down, still keen to check out these movies. Now, same as last year, I'm going to do this video, or hopefully the same as last year, because I didn't actually go back and watch my Volume 1 Hidden Gems response, so I can't completely remember how I did it. But I'm not going to go into crazy depth and detail on my thoughts on these movies, just to save time. And also there are a few movies that aren't so fresh in my mind. I'm not going to be scoring them out of 10 like I usually would do here on my channel for my reviews and whatever. And again, like last year, I'm going to do it in order from my favourite movie that I watched out of the 12 to my least favourite. The reason why I do that is just so you can just in general keep track of my thoughts on these movies. So if I speak about a movie earlier in the video, I liked it more than one that I speak about later. And then also my enthusiasm slightly drops as the video goes. Alright, so kicking it off with my favourite hidden gem that was recommended in Volume 2. Hopefully I pronounced the name of this movie correctly, but I believe it's pronounced Senantucci. It's from the year 2010. This was one of Moodz's recommendations, and I was able to watch this one on Tubi. Now, this is one where I had slightly heard of it before, not in any deep detail or whatever, just a couple of sentences and whatever. The poster is one that I've seen around a handful of times, the title rung a bell and whatever, but the most that I have heard anybody speak about this movie is when Moodz brought it up in the podcast episode. But to me, when the movie was done, this one felt like the most genuine of hidden gems, as in every movie that's been recommended this year in the Hidden Gems, and even last year in Volume 1, no matter how good they are, you can sort of understand why not many people have seen them, as in it might be a circumstance of, being lower budgeted, or, it's an older movie, or just victim of circumstance or whatever. But this movie, It's on Tubi, so it's not like it's lost and not on any streaming. It's from 2010, so it's not the oldest. I think the only thing you could put it down to is it is a foreign film. I can't remember where from, but maybe like that's the only thing that's keeping it as like a hidden gem. But this movie is like too high of quality. It's got so many good things going for it. The story, the acting, the way that the movie looks, just so many different aspects where it's like so fucking good. How was Moodz bringing it up on the Hidden Gems episode the first time anyone's recommended this movie to me before? It was so fucking good. I was having a great time right from the opening scene of this movie. Like, it had me sucked in, and then as the movie went on more and more, I was just like glued to the screen. I was so keen and wrapped up into where the story was going and what was happening and whatnot. I enjoyed the folk horror aspects of this movie. The lore behind the Senentucci. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing that correctly. The setting, obviously, very folk horror as well. There's kind of two different storylines going on in this movie. You've got one half of the story where it's like the policeman down in the village, and then you've got the other half, the second storyline, where it's the three men up on the mountain. And that was a big part of what kept me engaged with this movie. I was like really excited to see how these two stories and these characters were going to tie in together. And yeah, I found that to be really engaging and just kept me thinking right to the end. There was a part where I thought I had guessed where the movie was going with its reveal, and there was a few things that I got right, but I feel like overall the reveal and where the movie ended up, was a really cool surprise and really well executed. The scenes where they were building the Senentucci doll, or whatever you want to call it, or even the scene when it shows what had happened to the three men up on the mountain. I found that to be really gnarly, really gross. I remember I was eating at the part where it's going through the flesh and whatever. I'm trying not to spoil these for anyone either, but I found that shit to be really nasty, but I was digging it. I thought it was cool. Over the past handful of years, I feel like movies like this one have gotten so much attention. Folk horror, sort of slow burns in ways. So many movies like this, with so many common, things, have been so popular. But as I said, this one's just flown under the radar. As I said, I can't believe Moodz talking about it on the Hidden Gems was like the first time anyone's recommended this movie to me. I'm going to be recommending it to people who want to check out something like this. Very much enjoyed Senentucci. To my second favourite hidden gem that I watched this year goes to the movie 7 Days, again from the year 2010, and again recommended by Moodz, so he's 2 from 2 in the top 2, and I was able to watch this one on YouTube. This was actually the last of the hidden gems that I was able to find and watch, so this one is a little bit fresher in my mind. And considering the graphic nature of this movie and how brutal it is in parts, it's crazy that I was able to find this one on YouTube. I thought that was wild. But YouTube is really underrated. You can pretty much find any movie on YouTube if you look hard enough. And honestly, it's mostly about timing. Like, you might watch a movie one time and then you go back to check it out again and it's been taken down. Just give it like a couple of months and it'll be back up there. So if you want to watch anything on YouTube, it's pretty much all about timing. It will eventually be there. But the first thing I want to highlight about 7 Days is I thought this movie looked so crisp and clean. Like, some of the shots in this movie and just the way that it looked, like, just felt so, like I said, crisp and clean. Like, that's the best way I can use to describe it. Even when parts of the story get depressing, dark, bleak, brutal, it still just manages to look absolutely stunning. So that's the first thing that I want to highlight. And I do enjoy bleak, depressing movies, but this one, and the nature of what's going on in it, was pretty hard to stomach. And revenge movies for myself can be a little bit iffy, a little bit hit and miss with me. But from what Mood spoke about, recommending this one in the Hidden Gems episode, like, I sort of knew what I was getting myself into, so I managed to lock in, and yeah, the story just kept me immersed the whole way through. One thing that Moodz really highlighted when he was speaking about this movie was the scene where they do find the little girl's body, and how hard it is to watch that scene because it feels so real. And it's really chilling because it just feels and looks so real, like I said. And I've never seen a victim of these circumstances in real life before, so it's not like I can compare a real life body to what is in this movie. But yeah, it just feels so gross, so vile, and just the details like the fogged over, glassed over eyes, the pale skin, the blood on her dress and legs, which, you know, sort of trips the cog in your brain where you go, okay, it was more than being a victim of murder. It goes, you know, even more disgusting than that. And yeah, it is really brutal, and it just feels like a gut punch when that body is found, and then the dad's reaction. Like, that whole scene is like really impactful. Um, the acting in this movie is extremely solid from everybody in it. The message, I think, also really hits, especially with that final line of dialogue when a certain, again, I don't want to spoil any of these movies, but when a certain character is getting moved into that car, and the reporter says something to the character, that final line of dialogue, like, it just really rams home the message that the story and the film was building to the whole way through. I kind of wish that the revenge and torture went that little bit of a step further, but then also at the same time, I'm sort of between a rock and a hard place, because if it did, I feel like it could have had gone into maybe a little bit of like an over the top level where, you know, everything before that has stayed relatively grounded and realistic. So I'm not mad about that. One part that I didn't enjoy is when he goes and kidnaps one of the other victim's parents and brings her back to the house. I know it plays into the development of the character and how his mind is working at this part in the movie, and plays into the message and everything somewhat, but I just wasn't digging that part. That's just something me personally. But really solid character writing as well, and especially with the development between the husband and wife who have had this terrible thing happen to their daughter, and then how the main police officer plays into it as well, the main detective, how he relates to the situation, and things going on with him as well. And Moodz also highlighted this, like, there's cops in this movie where they're like, do we even want to find this guy and help him out because he's done a terrible thing? And just all that aspect as well, I thought was really cool. So yeah, my second favourite watch goes to 7 Days. So getting into my third favourite recommendation, this is a movie from 1976. It goes by the name Itim, I think I'm pronouncing that right, otherwise known as The Rights of May. Now, this is one that was recommended by Tyler, so Tyler, bro, you've broken the top 3 for myself, and this is one that I was able to watch on YouTube. Now, Tyler actually replied to a comment of mine predicting what of his recommendations would be my favourite, and this is actually one that he didn't bring up, but I did let him know that I had an appreciation for this movie, but he probably didn't predict how much of an appreciation for this movie that I had and how much I enjoyed it. And honestly, for a little while, neither did I, because this is one where, as time went on, it actually grew on me more and more and went higher and higher up my favourite lists for the recommendations for the hidden gems. Firstly, this was a cool one for myself because I'm actually not too familiar with movies from this area. You know, I believe this movie is a Filipino movie, but like movies from this area, like Malaysia and whatever, it's something pretty foreign to me, especially from this time period, as in this movie's from 76. Most of the stuff that I have seen from this region is like 90s or later, so this was definitely out of my wheelhouse, but it was cool to see something like that. Again, like the previous movies, this one had me pretty much right from the start, and I was super locked in to see where it would go. But more like Sin and Tucci, this one really had me with like the atmosphere, and that's something that you'll hear me probably bring up a lot when speaking about this movie, because the atmosphere was really fucking good, and something I think back on quite fondly when speaking about this film. Even though I was invested in whatever from when the movie started, the first half of the movie for myself felt a little bit bare, just not really much deep going on, I felt, and there was moments towards this first half of the movie where it did feel a little bit lengthy and dragging and whatever. And even though I really liked the atmosphere right from the start, and it was strong and I could sense that something was brewing, it just felt a little bit off and not quite clicking with me. But the second half is where it like really paid off for me, and I was like getting a second wind, like, okay, this movie's like really heating up now. And it's sort of just where the movie and the story starts to build and give you a clearer direction as well. So I will say, if you're watching this movie for the first time and having the same experience as me, where you're watching the first half and there's some really cool atmosphere and you're engaged in where the mystery's going, but it's taking its time, just hang in there, because it doesn't rely on scares and like a clear direction. It's building on that atmosphere and mystery, and for me it paid off. So as I said, just hang in there, get to the second half, and hopefully you enjoy it as much as I did. Since I keep harping on it, the mystery, the reveal, for myself, it was nothing that really blew me away. It was a pretty simple reveal in my opinion. I actually predicted the reveal between the characters and whatnot. I'm not sure if it's meant to be so obvious, but I found the reveal to be fairly obvious, especially after a particular scene happens. What was our main character's name? Jun or Jan or something. He finds this photo, and straight away I'm like, yep, I know what happens. And I'm not sure if it's meant to be that obvious. Probably is. I'm just dumb, but yeah, I predicted what was going to happen. But nevertheless, the ending and the reveal and the payoff was still really well executed and played really well into the atmosphere and the vibe. So when the movie was done, like I said, I had a good time. But then as days went by and weeks went by, because this is actually one of the first movies that I watched, the more I thought back on it, I'm like, you know what, I really dug that movie. I thought it was actually pretty cool. So my number 3 again goes to Itim, The Rights of May, otherwise I think it's called, one of Tyler's recommendations. So good shit, Tyler. So coming in at my number 4 is the first recommendation from JP. It's a movie from 1996. It goes by the name Reindeer Games, otherwise known as The Girl in the Basement, and I was able to check this one out on YouTube. This is one that is also a little bit fresher in my mind because it was the second to last one that I watched. Out of all the movies that were recommended in these hidden gems for Volume 2, this one looked the most low budget to me. Again, out of the 12 that I watched, and I didn't actually check any of the budgets for any of these movies. But this is like the perfect example of what we as horror fans try to tell people, and in particular mainstream movie watchers, that low budget doesn't always mean that a movie's going to be automatically bad. Like, I have so many mainstream movie watching friends that just don't go into, deeper territory like we do. And they see me put on a film and the budget is very obvious, and they're like, oh, this is shit. It's like, bro, you haven't even fucking watched a minute of it. Like, it's so annoying. As long as a movie can entertain and the story is good, to me that's like the two fundamentals to make a movie watchable. Something that I always say on my channel and to people when I'm talking about films is the worst thing that a movie can be is boring. Like, a movie can be bad, but it can still be entertaining. Like, once a movie is boring and you're watching it, like, what's the point? You're just not having a good time. I would prefer to watch 3 bad movies that are entertaining than one, like, decent movie, but I'm, like, bored by it. You know what I mean? Anyways, this movie maybe doesn't look great, and, it's missing a clean execution, and, like, some of the fundamentals aren't quite there on, like, a technical level maybe, but otherwise everything in this movie is, like, much better than what you would kind of expect it to be. The story I thought was, like, honestly great. This captive situation, but the whole movie is very, like, character driven, and it's not as sleazy as what you would maybe expect it to be. Like, looking at the poster and, the other title, The Girl in the Basement, like, I kind of expected it to be sleazy, but it's not at all. It's more about our lead character and his trauma, which has, like, mentally shaped him into this person that we're following in this movie who's done these terrible things. It feels real, like, this good enough guy that has done this terrible thing because of something that's mentally warped him. And the moment of dialogues between these characters, which JP highlighted when he recommended this movie, it makes everything much more clear. Like, when he's talking to his female captive, and he doesn't know what periods are, he doesn't even know if he's straight. He asks her, how many guys have you slept with? And, she says, like, a number, and he thinks she's sleeping around, and he also questions, if you sleep with someone, does that mean you're in love with them? And there's sort of, like, this innocence that comes through with his character, and because of that innocence, it doesn't make him like this clear-cut villain. It just makes him like really interesting to follow, and you get intrigued with his lines of dialogue and what he's saying, and his how he's thinking about the scenario. And yeah, I just found him to be a really interesting character, and that was probably what drove this movie the whole way through. The acting, again, is probably better than what you would maybe expect. Now, I'm not going to lie, there's some moments where the acting is quite spotty, but nothing to the point where, you know, it's worth bringing up any major negatives. Like, I feel, as I said, I feel like the acting is more of a positive and better than you would expect. Now, this movie is a kind of long watch, but for a movie with a minimal cast of characters, minimal locations, very dialogue driven, I feel like this movie like works wonders. Like, it really does make the most out of what is being put into it, I guess. So I really enjoyed Reindeer Games. I thought it was really cool. So as I said, my fourth favorite, JP, with his first recommendation. Coming in at my number 5 is another one of JP's recommendations, a movie from 2012 called The House with 100 Eyes. This one I was also able to find on YouTube. Now, this one is a little bit weird to have this high, honestly, because for the longest time I didn't. But the more I thought about it, there was just scenes that really stuck with me, and it wasn't a bad movie at all. Now, out of all the movies that I watched on YouTube, which honestly was majority of these, this is the one that did surprise me the most I was able to find on YouTube, just because of the levels of gore and violence. Now, it's nothing insanely gory or violent, like there are plenty of other movies that I can think of, like more than I can even list, that are like way worse than this. But for YouTube that monitor things fairly well, I was like, damn, I'm surprised this one sort of has slipped the cracks for this long. But again, like I brought up before, for watching things on YouTube, it's all about timing. You know, you just got to time it at the right time and hope that that movie's on there, and most of the time it will be, honestly. Now, this movie felt very similar to one of last year's picks that JP had, called Capture, Kill, Repeat, if I remember correctly, and that was my favourite of last year's Hidden Gems. So it sort of goes to show, one, how much I enjoyed this year's as well in comparison, the Hidden Gems, but also I will say Capture, Kill, Repeat was a better movie than this one. The highlights through this movie, like I said before, the gore and the violence, fairly brutal at times, really well done, I think. Surprisingly funny, but in like a very dark and mean-spirited way. Like, there's characters getting cussed out and insulted, but in like the funniest ways. Like, he's going off at his wife because she messed up particular kills and how it was meant to go down, and I just found that funny. There's this chick who's like chubbier, but she's not even like that fat, and he's like calling her piggy and stuff, and it's like, I don't know, it's just kind of dumb. There's even this moment where someone gets brought in a cage, and it's like kind of gross and weird, but it's so gross and weird, you're just kind of like, what the fuck, and you just have to laugh. Like, it's so bizarre. Now, moving on to the concept alone, the concept itself is fine, and I think it really suits the runtime for this movie, which it's quite short. It's only like a little over an hour, if I remember correctly. There is a moment of audio in this movie. I'm not sure if it's maybe the version that I watched or it's just in the film itself, but the audio was like really like weird and really off. It was a scene where someone is being tortured, and I should also specify this is a found footage movie. So they're being tortured, and there's two different camera angles with two different cameras, and it bounces between the cameras. But the audio on one of the cameras is like really high, and then on the other one it's normal. So throughout the scene, it's like normal at one part, then just goes really loud with screaming, and then goes back to normal, and then really loud. Like, through that 15-20 second period, I was giving my TV remote a fucking workout on the volume button. Like, it was going crazy. Like, I'm like, fuck, I need to turn it up, I can hear it. And then it would just fucking scream. I'm like, back down. You know, I was thinking, okay, it's a found footage movie, it's playing into the fact that there's two cameras and audio isn't always going to be the same, and it's using the two different pitches of audio to like give you a jump scare when it flicks between and whatever. But then the more I thought about it, I'm like, fuck it, maybe they just couldn't be fucked fixing up the mixing and the sound and finding a consistent volume. I don't know. It was a small thing, but that sort of bugged me. I also found the main lead, to be kind of annoying, especially in the first like 20-25 minutes of this movie, because he's playing like this presenter character, as in he's presenting his own snuff film, and he's got these fans apparently and whatever. So I get that he's playing into this persona, but it was just a little bit too much for me, and it was sort of taking me out of that first 20 minutes. And I guess taking me out of the reality of it because it's trying to be realistic and whatever. But after that 20-25 minute mark, the movie got better. And the movie's just like so short, where nothing so outrageously bad or stupid happens, where like it's just so short, you just don't feel like you wasted any time. I still think this was a really positive watch. I know I'm making it sound a lot more iffy, but I did enjoy this movie. I thought it was pretty cool. So my number 5, The House with 100 Eyes, again recommended by JP. Getting to my 6th pick, another recommendation from JP, so 3 in a row. All of a sudden it's not looking so good for Tyler anymore. I could have sworn he had another movie that was kind of high on my ranking, but I guess not. I swear your picks were better this year, bro. But JP's movie, it's from 2006 and it was called The Lost, and I was able to watch this one on Tubi. And this is actually the first movie that I watched out of all the hidden gems from Vol.2. And out of everything that I watched, this is actually the movie that dropped the most for me over time. I originally had this one much higher, but I think it's just a matter of because this was the first movie, like I said, that I watched. Other movies over time just became fresher and more memorable. But this was still a good, enjoyable movie, and yeah, I did like this one. I found it to be like a really interesting character piece on this like Ray Pye character, which I'll firstly say like really well acted. The guy that was playing Ray, I thought he did a great job. Like everyone did a good job in this movie. I thought the acting was pretty solid, but he was like the glue holding this movie together. He was like really solid. He was just like a really interesting character, and for a movie that is on like the longer side of things, again, he was the thing that I found to be most interesting. Like the parts where the movie did sort of show its length and did feel a little bit more drawn out was when we focused on other characters, and the spotlight was taken off of Ray. Like during those scenes I was like, oh, get Ray back in here. Like he was the more interesting character throughout this movie, and I enjoyed following him along. JP spoke in the Hidden Gems episode about how Ray was based on this real guy, but I can't remember if he mentioned if this whole movie is based on real events or a real story, or just parts of it are based on something that actually happened. I don't know. But yeah, I think this Ray guy really carried this movie, and as I said, saved it from being maybe just average. And yeah, I just really enjoyed following him through this film. It was weird how Ray's character like had charm and charisma and confidence, but then on the other hand, he also would feel undone in other parts. Like he's wearing makeup, like he feels like he needs to wear makeup to look better, I guess, and he's putting beer cans in his shoes to seem taller. Obviously, like I'm not a fucking psychologist, but like to me, it's like Ray is playing this character, like this ideal that he has in his head, like the pinnacle version of himself, like what he thinks is going to be the most accepted and seem like the best version of himself from other people. But then once insecurity plays in, or he feels like he's losing power, he just like flips a switch. And yeah, I found that to be really interesting. The mole that he draws on his face, however, like every time, like it would be like a different size or like slightly in a different spot. So I don't know how no one fucking realized, or maybe they did realize and they just were playing into it. I don't know. I really enjoyed the town and the setting. I remember this being brought up when JP was talking about the movie in the podcast episode, but is this movie set at a certain time? As in, it feels like it's set earlier than when everything's taking place, but I don't remember them saying that, so maybe I missed it. But again, really well acted overall, but I could give the highlight to the actor that played Ray. I didn't catch his name, but he did a great job. Everyone in this movie was, doing their part good, but he was just, like, as I said, stealing the show. And as much praise as I'm giving him, I don't know how Ray was getting chicks. Like, I don't know. I just looked at him and I'm like, this guy's fucking weird. But for a lower budget movie, I respect a lot of the shots and things that they were trying as well, like effects and camera angles and things going on like that. So I'll give it credit for that as well. But my number 6, I've got to give it to The Lost. Again, a recommendation by JP. 7th pick. Now, this is a movie I've been really looking forward to talk about, because now that we're at like the halfway mark roughly, This is one that's just so weird and bizarre. I'm going to have a lot of fun talking about it. It's a recommendation from Moodz, and the film is called The Carrier from 1988, and I was able to watch this one on YouTube. This is probably the most fun slash turn your brain off recommendation out of all the hidden gems recommended this year, because I got a kick out of this movie for sure. Is this movie a good movie, as you know what majority of people would describe as a good movie? No. That would be a bit of a stretch, but man, it's enjoyable for sure. Like, as I said, I got a kick out of this one, and I can see a lot of people getting a kick out of it. It's not going to be for everybody, but like, if you can just get your head in the right mindset, you'll have fun with it for sure. This movie had like bad acting, like more than half the cast were like terrible. Like, a lot of the townspeople, I guess, you know, it's fair enough because like they don't have much dialogue and whatever, but like even some of the leads, like they were really bad. Like, out of the 12 hidden gems that I watched, like this movie had the worst acting, easily in my eyes. The concept for the movie itself is ridiculous, but with that comes a lot of fun, charm, and rewatchability. So before I go too far down the rabbit hole of like the ridiculous shit going on in this movie, some things that I want to highlight. There is like really decent moments of like gore and effects. Like, some of the cooler effects is a part that Moodz brought up in the Hidden Gems episode. Like, they have these baby chickens, these chicks, and they're using them to rub up against infected areas to see if they're infected. And as weird as it is, like, it's pretty grim because the chicks are so cute, but the effect is actually done really well. Like, when they first use a chick, they use it on like this book, and like it just gets absorbed, and I'm like, fuck, that's actually like pretty cool and pretty well done. But again, plays into the ridiculous factor of this movie, and it's honestly, it's fucking funny as. Later on, they start using cats because the town has so many cats, and you know they're moving on from chicks now. And it gets even funnier with the cats because at a certain point in the movie, the cats start to get used as like almost a form of currency. Like, the town's running low on cats, and these other people are like, oh, we'll trade you 3 cats, and it's like, what the fuck is happening? Like, why is this part of the story now? It's ridiculous. Um, like, I was honestly like a fair way into this movie, and couldn't even figure out, like, I'm like, is this meant to be intentionally funny, or is it just so weird and bizarre, but it's taking itself serious? Like, I couldn't figure it out. Like, it got to a point where I'm like, it has to be self-aware that it knows it's fucking ridiculous, yeah? Like, the whole chickens and cats things being rubbed on infected areas is one thing, but then you've got like the town priest doing a prayer in the middle of the street while wearing a trash bag over his head. Like, it has to know that it's ridiculous, yeah? It has to be playing into it, because I was like cackling. There's a part that I wrote down here in the notes, and I'm so happy I wrote it down because I almost forgot. There is a group yelling yeehaw while chasing cats down, and then getting drunk and using the cats like darts while throwing them against the wall in an infected area, laughing, singing, and whatever. You're trying to tell me that they're fucking throwing cats at the wall at this infected area, so the cats are just sticking, going, yeah, and getting stuck, and they're not fucking thinking that this is ridiculous. Like, they have to know, right? Like, it just has to be self-aware. There's, like, even the scene at the start of the movie, and maybe this one clicked back into my head because I didn't write this down. Even the part at the start of the movie where our character, who is the carrier, gets attacked by that thing. Like, how the fuck does that work? Like, it doesn't really explain anything. He just gets scratched and now he's got like this thing. Like, it's so weird. But as I said, everything that I'm saying now just played into the charm and watchability of this movie. The over-the-top craziness, the cool enough effects. As I said, the effects were actually pretty cool. There's like people dying on the toilets, which was fun. Infected areas being used as like murder weapons. Like, there's this kid who uses this infected tree branch to kill someone. There's a girl who's getting, what are we allowed to say now? Graped. She's getting raped, and she like sacrifices herself by touching an infected area, but then it passes through her to the guy who's doing the thing, and like it's you can't take your eyes off it. You're like, what the fuck is happening? But it's like so engaging. There's even kids being killed in this movie, and I'm exactly like Moodz. I love when movies kill off kids. It's a big plus for me too, bro. And something about the mean-spirited nature of watching a kid dissolve just really scratches that itch for me. And then even on top of that, like, his friends run back after his mate gets killed. runs into like where everyone is, like the kid's parents are probably there, and he's just like, oh yeah, and he died, like just screams it. I thought that was fucking hilarious. The Carrier, so maybe not like a good movie, but oh man, like I had a blast with this one. I thought it was so much fun. Um, it's almost too ridiculous where I can't see myself coming back to it so soon, but somewhere down the track, this is one where I'm just gonna pop it in or on somewhere and yeah, just enjoy it again. Alright, so finally back again with Tyler for my 8th pick, and this one is one of his recommendations called Hangover Square from 1945, and this is one that I was able to find on YouTube. Now this is a weird one because like I said before, I could have sworn one of Tyler's picks was going to be higher, but then also at the same time, now that I'm looking back at my list and where I've ranked these movies again, I kind of understand why it's fallen at where it has. I watched this one fairly early on, and this is one where also, to be fair, it's not the freshest in my mind, which isn't like the movie's fault maybe, I don't know. But I was actually fairly into this one. I remember like when it started, like I was super engaged and I was enjoying the mystery and how the story was playing out. But then the second half had me checking out, I vaguely remember, which probably isn't the greatest sign because this movie was like a little over an hour. So checking out half an hour into the movie and, you know, not really enjoying it from there maybe isn't the greatest sign. But with that being said, like this movie still wasn't bad. Like we're over halfway through the movies that I watched. Like as I said, I watched 12. We're over the halfway mark, and including this one, we haven't we haven't spoken about a movie that I wouldn't rewatch or check out again, or like disliked. Yeah, like this movie, there was things that I enjoyed about it, and you know whatever. But this movie just for myself kind of suffers from being not that memorable. Again, that's just for myself. I remember there also being a lot of background distractions while I was watching this movie, just shit going on in my house and having a busy day, I guess. Anyways, and even though, like as I said, the second half just wasn't really doing it for me, there was things that I still enjoyed. The story, even though it wasn't the greatest, like I was still like trying to be engaged. The characters were cool. The turns in direction were pretty neat. Out of everything on this list, like this is the one I kind of want to rewatch the most because, like I said, I do remember liking it. It's just not that memorable, and it's probably not coming across as that right now. Tyler mentioned in the episode of the Hidden Gems podcast how he felt like the intro was very influential to slashers, and I also really dug the opening to this movie. I thought it was really cool as well, and the ending I also remember being pretty neat. Like I said, this one mostly suffers just from not being too fresh in my mind. I don't remember a lot of what was going on in this movie. I remember it sort of dropping off in the second half, but overall, like it wasn't an unpleasant experience. I'd watch this again in a heartbeat. Like I said, it's honestly one of the ones here that I do want to check out sooner rather than later. So at my number 8 spot, Tyler's pick, Hangover Square. For my 9th pick is a movie called Jonathan from the year 1970. This was another recommendation from JP, and I watched this one on YouTube. Now, out of everything I watched, this is the one that I probably knew the most about before going into it, because I remember this one being brought up on another episode of the podcast as well, not just the Hidden Gems one. I'm guessing probably would have been top 10 of like 1970. I feel like that episode was pretty recent as well, so it was pretty fresh in my mind. I remember this one getting talked about a fair bit and having a fair enough discussion on it. But even with that being said, I was kind of split on this one being what I expected, but then also being something that surprised me. It sort of found this nice middle ground, which was cool. And even though this is another movie on this ranking where it kind of doesn't reflect my enjoyment of the film, because I actually really dug this one as well and it had the potential to be higher, but again, kind of like Hangover Square, I watched this one fairly early on and it's not too fresh in my mind, but again, like Hangover Square, I remember like digging it for the most part. It's just not as clear in my head as I wish it was. Firstly, I sort of expected this one to have more dialogue or even be dialogue heavy, but it wasn't, or at least it just didn't have as much dialogue as I expected it to have. Much of the movie just felt like things playing out, and you know, we follow it along with small amounts of dialogue or just visually, which I'm fine with. I thought that was pretty cool. Now, this is something that does get brought up on the podcast a lot in terms of vampire films, especially from Moodz, I find. But seeing different countries' interpretations of vampires is really interesting, and I really enjoyed the interpretation that we got here. On the note of the vampires, another thing that I really enjoyed was how like the cult society kingdom of vampires, whatever you want to call them, wasn't really secretive either. Like very early on, we know that the town knows that there's vampires, and it just becomes this point where they're like, yeah, we're gonna uprise against these vampires, and I thought that was pretty neat. Even though this one was brought up on the podcast, and as I said again on the Hidden Gems, as well as the top 10 of 1970, I could have sworn it was brought up on that one. I did like this one more than I expected to. You know, when it was brought up, it didn't really sound like my thing on the Hidden Gems and the top 10 episode, but no, it surprised me with how much I enjoyed this one. It was solid, cool, again, not quite a home run, and I wish I remembered it better, but you know, I thought the whole seaside setting was pretty cool as well, and you know, the ship getting pushed in the ocean and everything, I thought that was pretty neat. One thing that I'm guaranteeing I'm alone on here, I hated the fucking score in the first like bit of this movie. Like whatever that score was, it just like it was fucking hurting my head. I know I'm probably alone in that, but it was annoying the shit out of me. But that's pretty much all I have for Jonathan. So as I said, that came in at my number 9 recommendation from JP. Getting to my pick number 10 of 12, here I have a movie called Morgiana. Hopefully I've pronounced that right, from the year 1972. Another recommendation by Tyler, and this one I was able to watch on YouTube. Now I'll expose my hand a little bit more here and say that this is the last of the movies that I've listed so far where I can confidently make a case for enjoying somewhat, you know, liking at least on like an average level. Obviously, like I explained at the start, as my list has gone on, I'm enjoying the movies, or my enjoyment from the movies is dropping, and my enthusiasm is going down, but I still got something out of this movie here, so I think that's pretty cool. And I will say, as a positive again, you know, I watched 12 out of the 15 hidden gems that were recommended, and we're at my 10th movie now, and the fact that I'm still getting something out of it, as I said, I feel like this year's lineup of hidden gems I enjoyed more, so I think that's pretty cool. Now, again, Tyler said to me in the same comments that I brought up before that he predicted that this would be my favourite of his recommendations, and unfortunately for you, or maybe more so unfortunately for me, this was just creeping a little bit too far into your pretentious territory. It just wasn't for me, but when I was watching it, I'm like, yeah, Tyler would be fucking loving this shit right now. I will say, I was hopeful going into this one because the opening credits and the opening score was awesome, like one of the highlights of the film to myself. And that's probably not a great thing that the opening credits and score was one of my highlights, but no, I'm serious. I was actually digging that shit. I thought it was pretty cool. But as the movie kept going, not to say that it was getting worse and worse or that it was bad or anything, I just wasn't huge on what was going on. And let me again reiterate what I said in the intro. Just because me and Tyler have a different taste in movies and, you know, I didn't find the same reward from this movie as what Tyler would, doesn't mean that it's a bad movie. We just like different things. You know, I'm sure there are more movies that I can count that I fucking adore, and Tyler would be like, what the fuck is this? And you know what, that is fair enough. We just have different tastes, so this isn't me hating on Tyler, but like I said, this movie is just, I'm watching it, I'm like, this is getting too pretentious for me. We're starting to creep there, but as I said, still got some reward from this one. What kept me hanging in with this movie the most was like the look of the movie, the aesthetic, the shots, costumes, music, even colours that were used in some of the moments in this movie were like really cool, and that was the stuff that kept me intrigued. Again, kind of like his pick that ranked highest, what was that? Itim, The Rights of May. This is a movie from a country where I'm not too in depth with like their cinema, especially from these time periods. Like this is a movie that it's a Czech film, if I remember correctly, and I'm not too familiar with a lot of Czech films, especially again from this time period. So again, broadening my horizons, which I respect again. Even though, like I said, I didn't care too much for what was going on in the story for this movie, I wouldn't say that it dragged at all. Like, this is a longer film, but it actually went by a lot quicker than what I thought it was going to. Like even in the parts where I'm like, okay, I'm slightly getting a bit antsy here, I checked the runtime. I'm like, fuck, more time's gone by than what I thought. So again, points for that. The movie's well acted. There's cool shots, colors, settings, landscapes. The score's nice. There's a nice nude scene with a couple of cute babes down by the ocean. I thought that was nice. Tyler was speaking about moments in this movie in the Hidden Gems podcast episode where some shots are taken from the cat's perspective, and when I heard about that, I'm like, I don't know if I'm into that. But those parts in the movie were pretty cool as well. Like I said, like this is probably the last one. As I said, I'm showing my hands a bit here. That I can make a case for at least liking on like this average level. Everything from here on out, like I probably don't want to watch again. The next one I kind of do for one particular reason, but yeah, I mean, as I said, 10 out of the 12 movies I watched, and just now I'm starting to get a little bit more antsy, I think is a good sign. So, Tyler, your movie, Morgiana, at my number 10. My number 11 spot, so one more to go after this one. I have a movie called Identikit that was recommended by Moodz. It was from the year 1970... I think it was 74, and I watched this one on Tubi. Now, out of every hidden gem that was recommended for Volume 2 and all the movies in the lineup, this was probably the most frustrating viewing experience for myself. Because when I was watching it and the movie was over and everything, like through every process point of the movie, I was like, this is a well-made film. I can understand why Moodz really likes it. On a technical standpoint, everything is really solid, it's well acted. Just all the boxes were getting ticked. But I just think I went into this one with like the wrong mindset, and like the first 45-50 minutes of this movie I was like super locked in, super engaged. There was moments where I was getting a bit confused and tripping up, and I don't know, maybe I just wasn't as locked in as what I thought I was. And I don't mind being confused by a movie, that's fine, and if anyone's going to get confused by a movie, it's me. But like every time I got confused, I was like catching up, retracing my steps, like okay, I think I've got it again. And then I'd slip up, and then when I slipped up, I'd like lose focus, and I just like it was annoying that I wasn't getting the movie because, as I said, everything on a technical standpoint, every box that you kind of want ticked otherwise was getting ticked. So, like I said, it was kind of frustrating. And I get not every movie is gonna click with everybody, and I was just saying that. And the same goes with Moodz here with what I was saying with Tyler. You know, just because I wasn't clicking with this movie doesn't mean it's a bad movie. Each to their own. I'd be saying the same thing if JP had a movie this low as well. But yeah, it was just a frustrating one because the acting and everything was great, and when I was able to keep up with the story and stay tuned in with what was going on, I was enjoying it. But as I said, it was just sort of frustrating because every time I slipped up, I just feel like it was like one step forward, two steps back. I think this is a movie where more than one watch will benefit you, but again, with trying to squeeze so many movies in, such a short amount of time, and then doing my own thing as well, keeping up with my own channel and work and personal life stuff as well, a rewatch just wasn't on the cards, unfortunately. Like I said before, with my last movie I was talking about, Morgiana or whatever it's called, we're sort of at the part now where I can say this movie just, as I said, there's technical positives that I can pull out, but my overall enjoyment watching this movie just wasn't quite there. This one sort of felt like a little bit of homework, a little bit of a chore to get through. Again, just because it didn't click with me doesn't make it a bad movie. As I said, a lot of technical stuff and everything was ticking the boxes, but just my viewing experience, this one was a little bit of a slog to get through once I got to about the hour mark. But I can understand, again, why Moodz likes this movie, because there's a lot of things on that technical level to pull out of it, and because I think Moodz said he's seen this movie a handful of times, as I said, I think the more times you view it, the more it would be easier to digest and more enjoyment you would get out of it. So there is a little bit of an asterisk on this one, but at my number 11 spot, I have the movie Identikit. And one more movie to go. Like I said, I only watched 12 of the 15. As I said, the other 3 movies I just couldn't find. But here in the last place spot, I have the movie City of Pirates from the year 1983, suggested by Tyler, and I watched this one on YouTube. Now I'm laughing because I know Tyler's sitting there with a fucking smirk on his face, nodding his head, because again, in that chat that we had in the comments, he predicted that this was going to be my least favourite movie recommended of the 15, but possibly could have been my least favourite movie of the 2 years of Hidden Gems combined. Not only is he right, this could have been my least favourite thing that I've watched over the past handful of years, just in general. Like, this one, I was like, what the fuck am I watching? And, like, I don't know, my head was just hurting. Now, I, again, took some notes while I was watching these movies here, and the notes that I have here are very blank. I wrote, there's a head in vegetables, kid wants to kiss the lady, I literally wrote, I don't know what the fuck I'm watching right now. Down the bottom I've written, I'm bored. This movie is like a fever dream. I feel like that's sort of noteworthy. I'm lucky I wrote that one down because it was very fever dream-like. But the worst part, I've got a few more things written here, but the worst part about reading back over these notes is they seem to be talking about particular parts, but half of them I don't even remember. I remember the head in the vegetables, and I don't know what kid kissing. I think, yeah, there was a line where a kid wants to kiss the lady or whatever. I was watching this movie, and I'm not gonna lie, there was parts where I was just checking out, just because, like, I was in so much, like, pain, and this was the trauma that I was worried about going through with this year coming off the back of last. Like I said, each to their own, but this movie, I was like, Tyler, bro, like it's almost like he picked this one going like, yeah, people aren't gonna fucking know what the hell's going on, and he's just gonna sit back and laugh. So I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna keep this one short and sharp because I don't want to waste anyone else's time. This video's probably gone long enough as is. As I said, I'll admit it was hard watching this one. It was hard to get invested. I was pretty bored. It made me terrified to watch the upcoming rest of Tyler's picks, because this isn't even the last one that I watched, of the 4 that I got around to for Tyler's. There was one more, I can't remember which one was the last one, but I was like, oh, Jesus Christ, it better not be as bad as fucking City of Pirates. But again, each to their own. I'm happy that Tyler likes this movie. Again, I probably got to just go back and listen to Volume 2 of the Hidden Gems episode to hear what he got out of it, because I'm watching this going, fuck, like, I need this over ASAP. But yeah, that will do for City of Pirates from the year 1983, again suggested by Tyler, you pretentious man. Done with my thoughts of the 12 out of 15 hidden gems for Volume 2 that I was able to check out. Just before we wrap this up, I actually ran the numbers to see which host I had the most in common with this year, or got the most enjoyment from their movies. The way that I scored this and figured it out was, as I said, I watched 12 movies, so the one that I rated the highest got a score of 12, one that I rated the lowest got a score of 1, and then obviously, I'm sure you guys get the gist, just corresponding numbers the whole way through. So the host that I got the most enjoyment from their movies from this year was Moodz, second place JP, and then last place Tyler. Again, I've got nothing but respect and love for Tyler. I love him on the podcast, love hearing his input on movies and everything, but like I keep saying, it's just a matter of taste in films, and I'm happy that Tyler gets enjoyment from these movies, just not quite my thing. Like I said in the intro, I'm normally pretty 50-50 with Moodz, or more so like, 65-70% of what he likes I normally get enjoyment from as well. So it's not a shock that he's taken number 1 out from JP, but like I predicted coming into it, I thought it would have been JP, because normally we are pretty in common. But like I said, Moodz had the number 1 and 2 for my favorites from this year for the Hidden Gems, so pretty cool. But yeah, I had a great time with Hidden Gems Volume 2. As I said, I think I got more enjoyment out of this one compared to last year's. I think this year's lineup of films was stronger, even though, again, my least favourite over the 2 years in general was this year's with City of Pirates. Tyler, just don't do that again to me, please. Like, I can't do that again. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I'm super keen for a Hidden Gems Volume 3. I can't wait to hear the host's feedback. Thank you for my viewers watching this video. Thank you for anyone who's come across from the 22 Shots audience to come watch this video. Thank you to any of the hosts watching it right now, JP, Moodz, Tyler. Thank you guys.